Okay, it looks like we are live. It is 6 o'clock here, and it's time to start painting. So, before I do that, I'm just going to pull up the stream on my phone here so I can watch the comments, make sure I'm keeping up with you guys. There it is. And there's my voice. Turn that sound off there. Okay. So, just going to give it a minute here for people to trickle in on YouTube and Facebook here. But in the meantime, I'm just going to warm up a little bit and explain what I'm going to do here tonight. I've had requests from a couple people who have said, you know, they're beginner artists and, you know, they could use a bit more of a breakdown of the basics of what I'm doing here. So today I'm going to kind of, oh, hey Jose, nice to see you. So, yeah, today I'm going to go over a little bit more of my thought process as I start a piece like this, and I am going to talk a little bit about sort of the basics of going into creating an environment piece, and I'm also just going to have some fun creating something with an interesting story here. Unlike previous videos, I've got a bit of an idea of what I'm getting into here. I haven't mapped any of it out yet, but we're going to start from the beginning of that process, start mapping out the composition, and then dive right into painting. So yeah, welcome you guys, and let's get going here. So what I've done is, this is a little bit different than what I usually do, where I just kind of jump in and see what happens and see what forms. This approach I'm going to take today is a little bit more like what I would do with a larger project, or, you know, a specific design, a specific idea, so more along the lines of a process I would undertake in response to a brief, you know, something a client wants commissioned. So you have an idea of what you're going to create. You've kind of have it formed in your head a little bit, and so you're going to know kind of what materials you're going to need ahead of time. So I've gone through, I've done a little searching, and I've gone through my own reference library, and I've picked out some things here that I think will be useful for this piece. So I have some reptile references because I'm thinking about putting a dragon in here. I have this figure reference, which will be useful, and I'm thinking about having some kind of character next to the dragon looking out. I have this armor reference that I found on Pinterest. I kind of just like the style. It seems very, seems like something, you know, a rider might wear. It's a little flexible, you know, it's not quite over the top as far as armor goes, but still kind of stylish. I have a couple architectural references here, because I'm thinking about creating some kind of structure here, and where did it go? I had one more. That's right, it's this one here. One more reference, and this is sort of this is both a perspective and a landscape reference. This is kind of more along the lines of what I want this environment to look like. It'll be kind of rocky and desolate, and so you know, you can have as many references as you want. You can keep pulling them up as you work. I like to have a few just ready to go so I don't have to kind of pause what I'm doing and start searching for them. And, you can have references for specific textures, for poses, for the landscape itself. You can have references for value, for perspective, for composition, for color, and for mood. It's really great to just refer to other things as much as possible throughout the process when you're creating anything. It just takes a little bit of the work off your shoulders and allows your creative input to flow a bit better. When you don't have to be constantly trying to figure out how things work, you can just look at something like this and be like, oh, well, this is how rocks work, and these are all, you can see, like, a lot of these are just stock photos. I'm not using these for photo texturing or anything like that. I'm just using them as references. So, if you are using photos for photo texturing, obviously you're going to want to make sure you find stock photos and things like that aren't copyrighted or anything. But as a reference, it's pretty much fair game. So I've started with a canvas here of, I think it's 5,000 by 3,000 pixels. That's roughly a 16 by 9 ratio. I don't have any specific dimension requirements here, so I'm just kind of picking something that'll fit nicely within the screen, so you guys can see what's going on here. And so, all right. Oh, hey, welcome, Pink Angel on YouTube. Nice to see you here, unfamiliar face. So yeah, I recently got another monitor, which I should have done a long time ago. It's really helpful for a lot of things, but especially for something like this, I'm going to be pulling a lot of my references onto the other monitor, so you won't see the references as I'm working with them necessarily, but I'll be sure to mention and show you when I'm using one. Alright, so let's get going here. I'm just going to create a new layer. It's always a good way to start. And I'm gonna get to do some drawing here. Now, hang on a sec. I think I will have to plug this thing in. I just got this new drawing tablet. It's working out really well for me. It does have a wireless function, but haven't quite figured it out yet, so I'm gonna plug it in here. I think perhaps it might not have very good battery. It's sort of a cheaper model, but there we go. All right, we have control here. All right, let's switch to a oh, do I have to? Interesting. My right-click function here isn't working. Always with the technical difficulties, of course. All right, I might have to. I have to restart the program here. Let's try that real quick. Yes, of course, the hang-ups of the digital medium are always there. But I guess at the end of the day, it's worth it. Just have to make sure my right click function here is working. Oh boy. Alright, let's try this again. Please stand by. Ideally, you know, I haven't run into this problem yet, but, you know, it's first time for everything, I suppose, and why not during a live stream? Alright, let's try this one more time. If it's not working, I'm just going to keep on moving. I don't absolutely need that for my workflow here. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's working, so let's just open up these references again. Okay. Well, that was a pain. But yeah, usually I'll have the brush menu hotkeyed to my right click on the pen, but it's just not working right now for some reason, so I'm just gonna keep my brush menu over here. Maybe I can just fit it in right here. Boom, look at that. And yeah, I think that'll work out. Just move this out a little bit so I can see both of them. Alright, now let's get going here. Create that new layer again, and let's just dive in with some sketching here. Find the right brush here. Sure, let's just... Actually, I've been really loving these Greg Rutkowski brushes, so let's use some of those. Alright, erase that. Let's get going here. Alright, so I have sort of a general idea of the composition here. So let's just dive in. So there are a couple different ways you can start something like this out. You could start with a thumbnail, something like that, or you can dive right into a sketch like this. You can do sketches as thumbnails, you know, whatever works for your process. I've been doing a lot of sketching by hand on a traditional pad, you know, recently, and that's just, I think it's really been super helpful in a lot of ways. So I'm just kind of I'm creating this little dragon shape here. There's going to be a character over here. It's a little complex for now, but I'm starting to map out the foreground, and I'm also deliberately sort of sectioning off corners. So already I've established a focal point right around one of the 2/3 mark on the canvas here. That's going to be this area here. That's going to be one of the focal points. I'm also thinking about doing a bit of a top-down perspective on this one, which is a little more advanced for, you know, if you're just starting out, but you know, it's useful practice. It's fun to mess around with perspective. And so another thing I'm doing as I'm creating these shapes is I'm trying to stick to basically like a big, medium, small division. This is a good habit to get into for, your shape distribution, for your line width or length, for your values. It's a great rule to follow, just in general, for creating quality design. So, oh yeah, I got a question here. When working with environmental art, there's certain tips when it comes to perspective. I use digital art since I'm never on a tablet. Yeah. So yeah, and the focal points. So tips about perspective. That is, you know, you can do studies. You can literally, I would do a bit of research on that. Look up YouTube videos, and there are plenty of free tutorials on like how to implement perspective as a baseline. Applying it to landscapes can be a bit more complex, just because with a a cube, for example, you have your x and your y and your z coordinates, and those define the three-dimensional plane. If you're drawing a building, it's pretty easy to map those out, but if you're creating a rock or something, it's a bit less clear. But generally, you want to bear in mind where you're looking from, and like if we're looking down like this, we're going to see a lot of the top planes of surfaces, and not so much their sides, and definitely not their bottoms. And things are going to tend to taper up a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do, and the focal points. So when you're mapping out your composition, if you're just starting out learning about this stuff, a good thing to do is follow the rule of thirds. You basically have your canvas divided up into these I'm not making these lines very well. These sections, a third across, or split into threes both ways. You want your focal points to be somewhere around here. And you only want, if you're just starting, I would stick to one or two, and you want them to be kind of in a sequence. You want one main focal point and one kind of secondary focal point. It's a good setup. You don't have to follow this rigidly, but you basically just want to avoid putting really interesting things anywhere around the edge of the canvas or directly in the center, unless you're being super deliberate about it, or anywhere in these kind of open spaces. And that'll just help you keep a nice composition here. And there are a lot of ways you can set up your focal areas and that kind of thing. There are many advanced compositional techniques that you can research yourself, but if you're just starting out, for our purposes, it's good to just kind of stick with that until you're used to it, and then you can figure out how you want to modify those strategies for yourself. So I'm also, as I'm putting this together, let's see. My brush size modifier isn't working either. This might be difficult. I'm not concerned about it though. Just use the manual mode. There are a lot of different shortcuts, ways to go about this, Okay. Yeah, I was just using this tablet earlier with no issues, but you never know what's gonna happen. So yeah, I'm just kind of blocking out. This is basically going to be my other focal point. And I'm just kind of making some supporting structures around here. They're just going to be kind of looking down on this area, and then I want to think about. I mean, these are my main compositional elements here, and now I want to think of like, okay, how am I going to fill the rest of the space? I basically want to. I'm just going to indicate it with lines here for now, but I want to set up the whole thing so that everything else in this image is just supporting this narrative. Everything is pulling attention away from other areas towards this and this. And these two have a relationship. With a setup like this, the relationship is fairly simple. If you are directed over here, their gaze will point you towards this, the main focal point. And once you wander from there, you want everything else kind of keeping you in this general area. You don't want anything that's super interesting around the edges that's just going to lead them right off the edge of the canvas. So, I mean, basically my goal with the rest of the space is to create supportive information that isn't asking for too much attention, and that is but that is also directing attention back to these areas. Okay. I'm just mapping out basic forms here, you know. Just kind of straightening some of these perspective lines. I can actually, well, let's just keep it to this layer for now. This is going to be my character here. It's a bit smaller than I'd first imagined it, so I'm actually gonna take this section. And it's really easy to do stuff like this at this phase. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna do a free transform here. Bring this out. Kind of pull it in a little bit. I want the view to be a bit closer to these guys here, because I want to have some nice interesting detail, you know. Yeah, that's cool. I'm kind of thinking with this dragon thing, I'm sort of imagining like the Nazgul from the Lord of the Rings. You know, there's that scene. I could, you know, it'd be cool to actually pull that up as a screenshot and use that as a reference. But there's that scene when it's just kind of the Witch King is hanging out on top of the fortress and looking down at all the orcs rolling out there. I thought that was a really cool scene. I'm just going to give some vague suggestions of rock here. I think I'm actually going to have them kind of platforming down, so this one here is going to be a bit lower. And, you know, that's just a nice strategy for sort of creating a path for your viewer to follow. There's going to be a lot of kind of rocky things going on here. Some little platforms around the edge where, some things might be going on. Nothing, too interesting, like I said, but little supportive elements. And, as you become more advanced. Oh, hi Shalandra. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of advanced artists come up with these really, really detailed, intricate compositions. That have a lot of background details, a lot of multiple focal points and sub focal points, and that's it can be really tempting to just want to like dive in and create a lot of detail like that, but it's really, especially if you're just starting out, it's really best to stick to some simpler stuff and really, just create some really key points of interest and build everything around that, and add details where you want, but in a way that's not it's not gonna be too invasive or anything. So at this point, let's see, where's my rock reference? Here it is. This is I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna pull this off to the side, so you're not gonna see it right now. But I mean, actually, it's not too important, because it's not about the detail here that I'm concerned with right now. It's more about the forms. So I'm just gonna move this down here for a minute and use that. I mean, the perspective here isn't quite as extreme, but I do like these rock formations, and I want to kind of mimic that here. These like kind of squarish, really steep kinds of things. Yeah, and at this point, it's good to just like zoom out and just check it out, make sure everything's readable from a distance. And actually gonna darken my brush a little bit here and start to refine some of these details, some of these shapes, Make some interesting stuff going on here. Think about my architecture a little bit. I'm actually going to shift this over a little bit. I've noticed that I've created a perfectly symmetrical view of this structure here, and I don't want to do that. That's it's just more interesting for the eye to see, to not have it's just kind of unlikely that you're going to be seeing this from a straight on angle like that. And like I said before, we want to kind of distribute our shapes somewhat unevenly. And this is all super rough right now, but I'm just kind of messing around with ideas. I'm just exploring a bit. I don't know. Something like that. Have some buttresses and towers and things going on here. It's a pretty rough sketch, but maybe I'll just keep it simple for now, keep it to these sort of blocky shapes. We'll worry about details here later. Just going to kind of shave this off a little bit, narrow it in. this, shift it over. Oh boy. Alright, let me just take a look at the comments here. Alright. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear the stream is freezing a bit with you, animation. Keep me posted. Anyone else, please, let me know if the stream quality is suffering for you, and I'll try to fix it. If it is just an issue with one of your connections, there's not much I can do about that, but, I want to make sure you guys get a quality stream here. Yeah, as far as references go, there's a lot of stuff on Pinterest, and there are sites specifically for getting references. I posted one today for figure and face references. That's really good. It's sketchdaily.com, I think, something like that. And it also has like a timer on it, so you can sort of create you can do like 5-minute poses and really force yourself to keep moving with those. Yeah, it's good to just kind of build a reference library and kind of monitor what you're using. I would divide it up by like things that are that you can use for photo textures and photo manipulation, which are non copyrighted things, free for use, and then you can have, and then just for references like I have here, you can use just about anything. Just gonna pull this perspective out. Still not quite accurate here, but it does, at this point it's not a big deal. Just kind of sketching things in loosely and keeping a lot of the shapes towards the edge as simple as I can. I want to keep my complex shapes more towards the middle here. I want to make sure these are in line with the perspective, so I'm kind of tilting them in a little bit. Yeah, it looks a little better. Everything's kind of everything's leaning in right now. Nothing is straight up and down like that, except kind of like the core of this structure here. But all the edges, everything is kind of angling inward, and that helps to reinforce this perspective here. All right, I think I've spent enough time sketching out that fortress. I'm gonna move on to some bigger and better things here. I just want to kind of map out what this dragon's going to be doing here. Just want to kind of clarify my shapes, make sure everything's working well together. And here's this rider down here, kind of leaning to the side like that. And there's some legs. Want to keep the perspective in mind here. It's going to be a bit foreshortened, a bit wider at the top. The legs will probably stop somewhere around there. Not sure yet. We'll see. And then we'll just have a bit of a jutting cliff here. That'll help actually just to reinforce this composition, kind of direct attention inward like that. pronounce that even more. Really have it stick out. All right. Oh, hey, Nick, welcome. Got Nick and Jose are my regulars here. Good to see you guys. I think we're kind of wrapping it up with the sketch phase here. I don't have all my details worked out, but I know pretty much how this stuff is gonna go, and you know, since I don't want to be here all night per se, just gonna keep it moving here. I got the essential details mapped out, and looking pretty good. So next thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna create another layer here, and let's start mapping out some of these values. Make sure I know how things are gonna work in terms of overall value scheme. So let's move over to something. Sure, let's use this. All right, I'm working underneath. Let's make this a bit transparent here. I'm going to work underneath this sketch layer and start. Oh, wait a minute. I am on the sketch layer. I don't want to do that. Here we go. Start mapping things out sort of loosely. So what I want to do here, lower the, it's going to bring the levels way down on this sketch so it's a bit more clear. Yeah, there we go. Just want to get an idea of how everything's gonna be mapped out overall, where my lighting is gonna come from. And you know, I'm kind of like, I'm still thinking about that that Lord of the Rings scene, so I kind of like the idea of this sort of you know, illuminated from beneath vibe here. So, but I want to keep this whole value scheme very, very simple. At least to start, you know. So there's the light source is sort of unusual in this case. It's coming from underneath, and then you know, the tops of all these things here are going to be in shadow. And then, you know, remember what I was saying earlier about you know, the distribution of line sizes and shape sizes and that kind of thing. I'm trying to do the same thing with my values here. So this is a big thing I see a lot of people miss when they're first starting out. You know, they have a lot of different shapes of value. A lot of them can be very small and complex, and it doesn't really help with the readability of the piece. overall. So you want to think about having the majority of your piece be one value. You know, if it's a brightly lit scene, that would be sort of your, upper middle tone would be the majority of it. And then, you can distribute it however you want, but you want like most of it to be one value, some of it to be a middle value, and then a very small amount you want to be the remaining value. In this case, that's the highlights. So notice, if you look up at the navigator, or you can probably see pretty easily from your perspective, if you zoom out like this, most of this image is this kind of dark, it could be darker, but I don't want to lose my my details. It's mostly just this dark shadowed area, and then there's a very limited space where there are highlights where the lighting is the greatest here. So let's keep it moving here. Next thing I'm gonna do, you have a few options at this point. One thing you can do, is you can just sort of create some color with a color balance like this, depending upon what you're trying to create. I'm actually thinking of using when you think about your color scheme, you want to think about how you're going to create contrast and what your lighting tone is going to be, what your shadow tone is going to be. Are you going to have a warm lighting source and a cool shadow area, or are you going to have a, like I can do here, a cool light source, and a warmer shadow area? So in this case, if this were, like, for example, if you think about that scene in Lord of the Rings that I'm kind of using as like a mental reference right now, that in those scenes, the light from beneath the fortress is this cool blue, blue-green kind of light, and if that's your light source, you're gonna want to think about creating contrast, like I'm doing here, with some warmer shadow tones. And I'm not sure, just because because I don't want to be too derivative, I'm not sure if I want to take it in that direction. I might just use sort of your more typical warm light source. In this case, it could be sort of like fire of some kind. And I'm gonna color balance. I'm gonna take my highlights into the warm red, yellow, orange range, and I'm gonna adjust my shadows to contrast that. And that'll just give me sort of a nice underpainting to work from here. So I'm actually going to take these two layers, I'm going to copy and paste them, and I'm going to merge them. So independent of those, I have this whole sketch layer, and then I have my actual sketch, and then I have my underpainting, which looks just kind of like a bunch of blobs right now. All right, so let me just take a look, see what people are saying here. Got a lot of good conversation going on here. I can do a little Q&A session at the end of this as well. So if I happen to miss your question, I can get to it at the end. For now, I'm just gonna try to make sure I'll keep up with what's popping up, and I'm gonna make sure I can finish a painting, or at least get this to a presentable state by the end of the session. This one might be a bit longer than the others because I'm doing a bit more of a methodical process here. But yeah, so now we got this whole thing here. I'm pretty pleased with this composition. There's pretty clear, it's pretty clear what's going on here. Basically, if you can, maybe it's not so much if you haven't been following along, but you may not know that all this kind of stuff is a dragon, but there's some kind of object here, and you may not see the character, but you know, the physical space and what's going on with the lighting and the mood and everything is pretty readable at this point. So it's a good time to start painting. And you can choose to paint under your sketch layer if you want to maintain that. I'm just going to keep it separate, and I'm just going to start painting over everything. And at this point, I usually prefer to keep my paint to one layer at this point. But yeah, actually, let's I love these Greg Rutkowski brushes here, because they're just so bold, really nice and textured. I'm just gonna start working things in here. I'm gonna create some hue variation, some saturation variation. I just want to, ooh, that's crazy. That's too intense. I just want to kind of just want to mess around with this a bit, because like the concept is pretty solid in my head. I'm not too concerned about I'm actually just going to keep this at this value. I don't want to mess with my values too much. That's harder for me at least to maintain in my head. But you know, I just want to get some digital paint on this canvas here. So let's take this dark color, start mapping out this dragon here. Let's get a little more specific with our shapes and just try to get some solid forms happening. And at this point, I'm keeping a lot of my attention on the navigator as well. I don't want to mess with my value scheme or anything too much at this point. But I'm just using some big thick marks here, not worrying too much about how it's reading as far as details and all that goes. I want to mess around with my hues a little bit, introduce some new colors. I want to keep my shadows fairly cool. Introduce some purples around here. You know, if you've seen my other videos, you know I like to start with a lot of color variety, because in my experience it's easier to lose color variety than to gain it as you work. Stuff is going to be, and so whenever I want to push a color further away from a cool color like this blue, you'll see I'm actually moving. I'm not moving it like up towards red. I'm moving it towards gray, and gray is the color that will help you communicate better between your colors. It will help your let me rephrase that. It will help your colors communicate better amongst themselves. So if you want to shift from one tone to another, or from one color to another, you know, use a gray to make that happen. I'm gonna start introducing some warmer tones here. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And then anywhere where it's kind of dropping closer to shadow color, I'm just gonna push it towards the gray again. You know, as I go up these columns, and then even I'll I'll kind of shift the hue over so that gray starts to become a blue again. But these values are kind of all over the place right now. I wouldn't worry about that, but I want to keep them light down here. So we want our brightest spots to be down here at the base. I'm also I'm like matching my strokes with the environment, so I'm not just sort of filling in the space in a random way. I'm following the direction of the 3D space, so we can create a lot of these things here. And create some of those platforms I was talking about earlier, you know, spaces where that light is not reaching. There are going to be some shadows cast up. There are going to be little spots where the top plane is visible, and that top plane is going to be sort of shadowed here. All right, let's return our attention to this fortress here. It's going to be some cool shadows along the top planes here. Maybe not quite that color, but we can mess around with it. And then there are going to be some warmer tones. And then where the light is hitting it directly, we're going to have this nice, brightly illuminated. Probably some of that light. And this brush is not good at fading, so like everything looks super choppy and, you know, uncoordinated right now. But really, all I'm doing right now is trying to put some color down. I'm not too worried about messing up my composition because I have, you know, I have these layers as a reference if I need them. And I mean, even now, like this whole thing is looking like pretty bland to me. So I'm just gonna bump up this saturation just manually, because I just love starting with, oh, that's intense. But you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. I love starting with a lot of intense color, and that's kind of more of my stylistic preference. If you think you can't, if you think you can't handle that, no. If that's not your preference, if you don't think like you can do this effectively, you know, you don't have to. But you know, it's easy if you want to dial back the color later and make everything cohesive. You can easily do that with a color balance or, you know, whatever. It's like I said, it's a lot easier to bring it back than to create it. So. And at this point, I think I have like most of the colors I want. I want to introduce some more green tones actually. So I lied about that. I just want to have them available. I'm kind of like, I'm almost creating, you know, if you work with traditional paints, you have your palette, you know, physical palette next to you that you can just keep drawing from. I'm kind of creating a digital palette just on my painting. So at any point, I can just color pick from any area and have that available. And I'm starting to see over here, I really like this kind of this cool light that's coming down from above, almost like this is moonlit, you know. So not only are these shadows, oh yeah, I'm just gonna start incorporating that everywhere. It's a nice dynamic. Not only are these shaded area, the shadow colors cool, but also the secondary light source, which is kind of just like, I don't know, it could be the moon or anything like that, you know, that is also a cool light. So it's just going to create this really nice contrast between the two. I just want to make sure I'm maintaining my original value scheme here too. Something you can do to check that, actually, I'll show you right now. You create a new layer. I think I learned this from Wallet, actually. If you guys are, I think most of you are from the Evanen group. This is great strategy. I learned from one of his videos. You can just take a new layer, fill it with any colorless value like that, and then set the layer to saturation. So it just makes it black and white. You can really look at this and you know, see if your values are working. I can compare this to my original value scheme. It's a bit different, but it's not you know, it's not totally out of whack. You can even, there's a way, this is a Marco Bucci method, actually, that you can pick colors from the layer beneath it and paint in grayscale. So your colors are almost random. And it's that's just a cool experiment you can do. He kind of uses it to almost to prove that your colors don't matter as much as your values, which is, I don't know, in my experience, pretty true. You know, if your values aren't reading well, it doesn't matter what your colors are, it's just not going to come through. But that being said, colors are awesome, so, you know, go nuts with it. But just, you know, make sure you're not compromising your value scheme too much, or at all, really. You know, you want that to be on point. Incorporate some darker shadow tones here. I really want to dial up the contrast between this the structure and the surrounding lighting scheme here. I'm gonna start using some yellows down here. This lighting isn't looking quite natural right now. I think I need some more of those tones here. Another thing I've kind of done here is I've almost, if you go, I mean, this is kind of the double edge of the starting out with high saturation. If you go too far too soon, it's hard to, you know, increase your saturation when you want to, because you'll hit the limits of Photoshop, you know, your monitor. You won't be able to create a color that's more bright or more intense. So you know, if that happens, you can always just dial it back, and you know, work those colors back in where you need to. Start creating some more interesting architectural elements here. Just keeping it super loose right now. And okay, so I've got like I forgot to fill this space out here. I kind of want to just go over everything that's still a little bit sketchy and clarify that. I'm not sure what's happening here. I'm just gonna do a bit of that. Let's take out some of the intensity of some of these values in the back here. I just want to draw a bit more attention to what's going on in the center, or the foreground, or around the focal point, that is. And we can even I think this brush is kind of reaching the end of its usefulness, so at least for now. So I'm just gonna kind of loosely paint this character in again, and then move on to kind of refining some of these shapes and making this read a bit better. All right, cool. Let's flip it, see how it looks. I think it's kind of starting to look to read a bit better. I'm just gonna include a few more of those awesome moonlight highlight areas here. I really like how that's looking. And working with, this brush has no transfer, it has no opacity to it, or no transparency to it. So working with a brush like this really forces you to pick your colors carefully, or to pick your colors deliberately. You can't just fade everything together. It has to, work for that situation. Closely. Like, all these colors are kind of all over the place right now, but it forces you to think about the colors you're putting down a little more clearly, I think. Okay. All right, let's start to reel this in a bit. Notice I'm keeping my my value range pretty limited right here, with the structure and the distant objects. That's just helping to reinforce the sense of depth here. I'm gonna go in and refine some of these things that are going on. Sharpen up my shapes a bit. Think about how I want this all to read together. Just gonna grab this again, just to straighten it out, copy, paste, move it over, rotate it. Merge down and keep painting. A good reference for this would have also been kind of like a New York City from above kind of thing. I'm getting a bit of those vibes with this. Because, you know, or during nighttime, that is. You know, New York City from above during nighttime is going to be bottom lit like this. Let's switch to a brush that has a bit more transparency to it. Oh, I like this one. This is one I actually built recently for, since I have a pen now that that has brush tilt. It's really helpful. I made this brush so I can take advantage of that. I can create these kind of these lines in multiple directions. That'll help me create some of these architectural nuances here. I don't think that's quite the right value that I need here. Let's reserve that highlight for something else. I'm actually just going to kind of soften down this this color here with the blue, so it's not quite as intense. I just want the top of this to sort of well, it's going to be difficult. You know, I want it to pop out, and I also want it to, I want there to be a specific focal area here that isn't the whole building, if that makes any sense. But we're just going to keep working here and see what happens. And then where's my I don't have my usual, where is it, brush settings. Let's put that over here. Come on, buddy. There you go. Adjust the angle. Maybe I don't want to do that. Alright, let's just keep working this way. Let's kind of mimic the architectural pattern that's going on the other side there. Yeah, this is where this brush is super useful. I'm just turning it, tilting it so I can get those nice fine vertical lines here. Or sort of vertical. Alright, I'm getting lost in the details again. Sort of jumping the gun on that. I'm also thinking, like, this, there needs to be a bit more red in this area. think maybe I don't want that light to be going up quite this far, so this will help it pop out a little bit. I'm actually just going to take a selection of this whole area like this. Probably should have done this a while ago. Oops. Just add to that. All right, yeah, let's take this whole thing. I'm just gonna darken it up. Give it some of this blue here. Oops. It's a little dark, but let's see what happens. Just want to make this whole thing stand out a bit more. Switch to a something soft here. Yeah, that's gonna read much better. And then while we're at it, let's just keep rocking with this selection tool. And let's just reinforce some of these shapes. Give them some of this nice moonlight lighting here. Nice, that looks good. I think that's what I've been missing. Shapes are kind of imprecise right now, but it's okay. Just want to get the general idea down. We can refine it later on. Yeah, I think this is a much better color setup. Can create sort of a gradient here from, you know, where some of that bottom light is hitting it, to, you know, some of where the moonlight is hitting it. Sort of create a nice soft transition between those two. Yeah, and it's nice to use the selection tool for stuff like this, because it's helping to create some contrast, you know, like that against all this brushwork. Really helps it to stand out. So I'm not like being like super precise about these selections here, but just enough to give us some general information about what's going on. To save us some time, let's take this, what we've just created, copy that, paste it, flip horizontal, just move it right over here. Stretch it out a bit. And let's just change the lower the highlights a bit so it's a bit more in shadow than the other side. And we can do a little color balance to give it some more of that cyan shadow tone. Sometimes this takes a bit of tweaking between the levels and the color balance, but just gonna adjust that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. That's cool. Probably take those levels or those shadows up just a little bit. It's a tough balance to find here. And then just gonna, whoops, zoomed way in. Using the wrong button here. Control, select that layer, and just paint in some of that blue light again. Let's set that to multiply mode so we don't lose our shadows too. There we go. That's good. Let's flip it just to get some perspective here. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Just want to clarify this shape. Whoops, I'm still on multiply here. And create some shadow tones towards the interior edge here. I don't know. There we go. Yeah, that's a whole other way of painting, going about things like that. And this, this all looks kind of rigid and digital right now, and we can go in with brushes later on and make it look a bit smoother or less refined, like that. But for now, I just want to kind of get these shapes of value in here. Darken that up a bit. And then we can start to use this selection tool to reinforce some of our shapes up here. And can do Control-Shift-I to flip that selection, and let's just sort of dial in some of this atmosphere here. Probably should have used the linear dodge brush for that, but we won't worry about it. Deselect. Now you have this nice clean edge here. And again, we can always go in later and smudge that out, make it look a bit more natural. I think there needs to be a bit more white down here, so I'm just gonna kind of paint that in a little bit. Okay, let's leave that fortress alone for a minute here. And I'm just going to start trying to reinforce some of my shapes. Create some clear planes. And we can stop using this soft brush here because I think it's soaking up a lot of our texture. Let's go back to it's a good one I have here. Texture paintbrush, perfect. Let's use this. Just start to solidify that edge. Can have some light coming up from here. Oh yeah. And then can always invert that and use the same sort of strategy for the other side of the edge. Okay. Just do the same thing over here. Let's bring over some of these nice moonlit colors from the other side. And then there's just going to be a bit of a shadow up along here. Just helping to define these. Flip it. Just start to dial in some of those upper illuminated areas. Make these shapes a bit clearer. I'm actually not crazy about the shapes I've made over here, so let's just gonna mess with that a little bit. It's a bit too invasive. You can always just, you know, keep experimenting with this stuff, seeing what works. Not sure what I'm doing right now, but that's kind of interesting. I'm going to create some more of these platforms down here. And then have some shadows moving up from there. Oops. That's a bit too much. We'll see. This is all pretty loose still. Alright, let's not worry too much about what's going on over here right now. Let's start working on this little duo over here. I'm actually going to create a new layer here just for the sake of this overlapping shape, it'll save me some work later. Nice. It's a good selection. Let's just copy what's down here, paste it again, and interesting. I've been working on this other layer here. I actually think I've whoops. Yeah, I've sort of lost some of my color interest, so I'm actually going to kind of dial this back a bit. I'm erasing over what I just did because I think I just lost some of my color interest and so on here and there. All right, let's keep it that way and merge those down. And now I have this this dragon thing, or this foreground layer right here. I can actually, I've locked the transparent pixels down there, which means that in theory, what did I do wrong here? Well, I kind of lost that selection, but yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through and solidify some of these shapes. And then let's use this sketch dynamic brush and start doing a bit of unlock those pixels again. Let's start doing a bit of detailing here. Maybe start incorporating that moonlight effect over here. Yeah, I kind of like the mood that's coming across with that. Some little sparing highlights here and there. That's kind of cool. Flip it. Nice. I'm liking this. I'm not so crazy about all this. But, you know, I think I was just sort of overworking it without much direction, and there's really no point in that. So I'm just going to come back to it and, you know, hope this all comes together in the end. Do a little sketching on some of these rocks. Just give them a bit of interest. Some edges. I don't know. I actually had an interesting thing going on here earlier that I want to get back. Just kind of, I had this edge sort of disappearing a little bit with some nice horizontal lines, so yeah, I I always love pushing the perspective like that. You know, as this shape is approaching the curve, the outside curve of the structure, these lines are going to get, you know, more flat like this. They're just going to keep sort of curving inward. And let's do a little drawing over. I'm really excited about. For some reason, I just love this this area over here. This little platform where the moonlight is hitting things, and it just seems like a cool place to be. So I'm just sort of mapping some stuff out. I'm gonna bring up that rock reference again. Actually, I haven't been using my references as much as I said I would. Not that one. Might come back to that. Let's bring this out. Just gonna put it over here. Let's I'm just gonna start trying to map out some of those rocky things that I love so much. I don't want this to be too distracting of an area, you know, like I said before. I just want there to be a bit of interest going on. You know, I can create as much detail as I want here essentially, but it just can't I would probably lower the contrast or something like that to make it really blend in a bit better. But yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm doing over here. As always, I'm not really sure what I'm doing anywhere, but it's totally okay to proceed with absolute uncertainty. It's fun. And you know, I'm doing all this on this foreground layer. I kind of just forgot that I created that. But it doesn't matter, really. I'm pretty used to working on one layer at this point. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Let's whoops. What did I do? Can I get my layers back here? There it is. Yeah, things are moving a bit slower without that brush menu hotkey. I'm gonna have to figure that out before the next stream here, but I'm sure I will. I'm just kind of blurring out some of those details I made. It was a bit too attention grabby, you know what I'm saying? I think all of this could use a good dose of darkness. There's a heavy metal band name for you. Maybe I'm not quite. I don't want to quite take things out that much, but let's flip it, see how things are going here. I might have to Alright, I'm gonna merge these down again, because it seems like I'm sort of trending towards working on one layer anyway. I'm gonna start I'm gonna bring out this mixer brush. I'm we're going to see what we can do with that. We can create some interesting smooth things here. Sort of refine some of these shapes. I don't want to, you know, take out too much of my texture here, but I want to make these shapes a bit more readable, so it's a bit easier to do that. Smooth brush is very, or the mixer brush is very intuitive to use. It's just a lot like working with oil paint. I'm kind of connecting these bits of the landscape back here. That's kind of fun. Sort of a fun. I mean, it's not really super realistic, but you know, but I like this sort of cascade effect. It almost looks like a waterfall, and I just want to kind of start sectioning off little areas of cliff as this goes down. Very Bob Ross like, oh hey Drew, I didn't even know you were here. Good to see your little icon, man. Drew left me a very nice review on my Facebook page today. I did a little fantasy pet portrait for him a while back. So thank you, Drew. Flip it, see what's going on here. I'm getting a little lost with all this cliff stuff that's going on. But that's okay. It's nice to have this contrast between the smoothness and the texture that I've already put down. You know, I don't want to get rid of all of it, but creating the smoothness around it helps to create some interest around that texture. I am probably going a bit overboard with that, but that's okay. I mean, they're all peripheral elements here, so it's not super vital to maintain texture in those areas as much as it is, you know, around the main focal points and everything. But I do like to keep as much of that texture as I can. And you can always put more in later. I mean, nothing is lost here. Nothing is sacred. Oh yeah, I'm kind of changing the dynamic of the rock structures a little bit. They're starting to smooth out somewhat, and having this kind of this real almost like they've been like water has been running over them. Maybe I could create some waterfalls here. Who knows? You're listening to the the clicking of the stylus. I know. I noticed that when I watch other other videos from artists. I do love that that clicking effect too. That's pretty fun. I don't know why. You know, it's not like they're actually applying pen to paper or anything like that, but it's proof that the art is being made in real time. Not that I don't know if I need that, but you have it. So do with it what you will. Yeah, I might be smoothing things out a bit too much, but I'm pretty comfortable with the pacing of things right now, and I'm getting this strategy is helping me shape things a little more confidently. I was having a bit of trouble with that earlier. Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting with the red there. Maybe I'll incorporate that more in other places here. I like that deep red. Like treading carefully around that point because as you know, I did not separate that out onto a different layer, but I think it'll be fine. Like I said, it's not a total necessity. I think I've set myself up for more of a ambitious project than I had intended to here, but I think that's good. You know, I think in the other videos I've pretty much kept it to a single session painting, and I may have to split this one up and continue it tomorrow. You know, I'm hitting the point where I could use a break. You know, after working for 2 hours, that's pretty much my limit. Usually I'll get up and do some other stuff, take a break. But I'm gonna keep working here for the last 15 minutes we got, and depending upon how that goes, I might come at you with part 2. Maybe we can get into some photo texturing stuff or you know, whatever we want to do. If you guys want to see this developed in a certain direction, you know, feel free to drop a comment there, and maybe we can make it happen. Oh yeah, I like that. I like these vertical structures, almost like pillars of some kind of ancient temple. I'm just gonna try to reinforce that idea. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I've pretty much like bulldozed a lot of my texture out of here, but you know, usually I would avoid doing that, but I'm just having so much fun with this mixer brush. I'm kind of changing my whole feel quite a bit, but I like where this is going. I like the mood. I like the lighting, and I like the composition. I think you know, this whole area in the center is just gonna need some clarification and all. And I think with the lighting and the color scheme, God, I just love this. All this blueness over here, though, how it just contrasts so nicely with everything else that's going on. I just want to keep pushing it. I should be careful though. I keep an eye on my my navigator up here. Make sure I'm not messing with my values too much. I don't really have a good place for this reference. I'm just gonna pop it in the other screen here. I'm just gonna shift this over to the green a little bit. I'm just gonna incorporate some nice color variety over here. This seems to be a nice area for kind of, I don't know, like a secondary, tertiary focal point. So I'm just sort of playing up the highlights and the color a little bit over here and just making it look nice. Kind of just starting to get in the groove of defining these rock shapes. I'm not even really heeding my reference so much, but I just love, this is almost like you know, shelves on an ocean floor, you know. Just really love how this is all panning out over here. So maybe I'll start to do some of that stuff in this area, you know. Create some little highlights. Use those to help guide the form. Maybe throw some of that. Maybe some of that red is just gonna make it up to the edge here. Maybe that's not necessary. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Just barely peeking over the edge. Incorporate some of this purple here. I like this purple color. I'll keep color picking to make sure I don't lose too much of those value or those hues I set up at the beginning. I really liked the way those were going. I think I've made those highlights a bit too pronounced over here, so I'm just gonna dial those back with some lower tones. Maybe I've kind of messed with my texture a bit too much, as I have throughout this process. And as I said, it doesn't really matter. Can always put more in later. I'm going to try to simplify some of these shapes here. I don't know about that. I think the perspective is a bit unclear right here. So maybe I'll return to that. It's not a super important piece of this whole puzzle, so to speak. Let's take a minute, now that I'm a bit loosened up here, return to this structure and see if we can paint out some details. Let's bring up, that's pretty cool. I like that. I kind of like, this is sort of a bit more alien, a bit more fantasy. I'm just gonna, I mean, you know, obviously it's not, this is a real structure somewhere, but I kind of like the style. Yeah, so like I said, I'm probably going to make this a 2-part video, which is kind of exciting. I haven't done that before, but if you have ideas, anything you want to see in the next part of this, if you want to see this developed in a certain way, or you know, you have some ideas for some elements you want to see included in this, just drop a comment there and tune in. You know, I might just keep this going tomorrow, and you know, because I love doing this. It's an excuse for me to keep painting, and not that I need one at the moment, but you know, this is sort of I like doing sort of a non-work related task, and just to kind of get into the process a bit and get to enjoy it and share with you guys and see what and listen to your feedback. And oh yeah, I think this whole area down here is improving quite a bit. See, I'm kind of cutting into the edge of this form just to give it some variety. You know, I'm just sort of very, very gently working into here. I'm kind of separating out this middle section a bit. Just to shake it up, you know. And I'm just kind of losing some of these edges too, and that's helping to give this a bit more spunk. I'm using the smudge tool to pull out some of these spires. I don't know if that helped anything at all. I think I just totally messed with that top point there, but yeah, the rest of it looks kind of cool. Let's return to that smudge tool and just sort of bump up some of these little bits here. Bumping up bits. So painting is all about. Bump those bits. I gotta stop what I'm saying. Yeah, I think I've noticed that this, I'm learning things as I go. With every painting, I'm learning new things. That's what's so fun about this. I'm noticing that these areas where that warm light is starting to recede a bit, they tend to get more red. So I'm just gonna kind of play that up here. Oh yeah, I think that's gonna work out much better. I'm just gonna bring down the value a bit to something like that, but yeah, I like that a lot. See if I can play that up right here. It's not quite the selection I wanted. I guess I'll have to do this manually. Let's check this out. Something like this. And then another one over here. I won't worry about that one. Let's try this. That's kind of cool. Move that down here. Yeah, I love these these mini breakthroughs I get throughout the process. Every painting is a learning experience. Yeah, the perspective's a little off. I'm not worried about it though. I can always correct it later. And let's just use the wand tool to select that area again, and I'm just going to bring it a bit more towards that orange. Let's pick it from over here, actually. Move this ancient Tower of Peace as much as I like it. I don't need it there right now. That's interesting. I think I've created a lot of contrast down here, and that's not necessarily where I want to have it. So I'm just going to pull that back a bit. Maybe invert that. Bring in some of these lighter blues. I don't know. You don't want to use the wand tool too much because you're just going to start making these crazy arbitrary selections. But let's take out this red again. Just create some nice misty stuff going on here. Some texture. Some fiery things. That's a bit overkill. I'll get back to that later. Ooh, yeah, some rock shards. Yeah, when I conceived of this initially, I was thinking of, having some other supportive structures, like here and here. And I kind of lost that idea in favor of this central focal point, but we can try some of that stuff. See if that'll work out. That's kind of cool. take a little bit of that, give it some moonlight. That's kind of interesting. Maybe I can create some more of these down here. That was a good idea. Give them a more of a reddish hue because they're a bit more deeply immersed in this light. Maybe I will move this one. It's almost competing with that that main tower there. Just gonna sort of side it down. Small gate for scale. Absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah. Creating something that's human-sized, so we know what we're working with here. Just gonna blot that out. Merge these again. You know, again, I'm still working on this one layer, and I'm gonna include a bit of that red light on here. Give these a bit of dimension, bit of interest. Just help them blend in with everything. Even a little motion, you know, almost like they're shooting up. I don't know. Not sure what's happening with those yet, but find out, you know. Give this a bit of dimension here. Bit of detail, interest. Maybe we can even have some glowing windows or something like that, you know. Make it look... I feel like this almost needs some other kind of color element or something. Let's see if this Photoshop has been really working on its object selection tool. So let's see if this will work. Yeah, it's kind of right. Whoops. Let's try that again. Nope. Alright, well, this is as close as we're going to get. Just want to see if I can make this pop out a little bit more by bringing down these highlights. Yeah, I want this to be sort of silhouetted against the rest of the piece there. Just cut out that little bit. And we're golden. And I just want to start. I just love this moonlight, so I just want to incorporate some of that here before we move on to Tomorrowland, because I'm not gonna finish this puppy tonight, but I think it's shaping up real well. I think I've thrown off the perspective a little bit here. I'm gonna have to correct that at some point. Let me see if I can do a quick fix here. This doesn't always work, but copy paste, free transform. And maybe use warp a little bit just to recenter this. I don't know. Did that help? Yeah, a little bit. I'll just kind of erase off this little edge here. And we'll come back to that. Okay, well, I am, it is getting dark here, as you can see, perhaps in my little square in the corner there. But I'm gonna put this one on pause for tonight, and you know, let's just pick this up tomorrow night, same time, if you want to tune back in, and you know, we'll just keep this one moving. I think it's got some potential here, but I've had to, you know, I put some time into the planning phase. You know what, just this is really bugging me. I just want to try to mess with this perspective one more time. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty extreme, but it kind of works. All right. Yeah, we'll get back to this tomorrow, same time. Please feel free to leave a comment on the video or the event here on Facebook or on my page. Let me know if you'd like to see anything happen with this. Let me know if you have any questions. Actually, if you want to take a minute right now, if you have anything that you want to ask at this point, feel free to leave a comment here, and I'll just leave a response after the stream. But thanks for joining me tonight. It was great to see some good turnout here, both on YouTube and on Facebook. And I will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to pick this piece up again. All right. Well, have a good night or good morning or whatever time it is where you are.